And if you come and say, oh, yeah, but I am really, creative, and that is not enough. Or if you come and you say, well, but I'm the most important scientific person, I have a PhD. If you don't know how to tell a story and you don't know how to really do it in a way that is incredibly emotional and is going to touch people's life, you also is not going to be as effective.
Welcome back to Created for Creatives, the podcast where creatives talk about, you know it, creative. I'm Sarah Knights, your host for this episode, coming to you from the jury rooms of the London International Awards in Las Vegas. Eric Weisberg is the Global Chief Creative Officer of Havas Health and You, and Renata Maia is the Global Chief Creative Officer at Wunderman Thompson Health. Renata's parents were both scientists, and she grew up in a household where problem solving was every day. And while she couldn't quite relate to their exactness, it still held a fascination for her.
Because I always felt it was very, very creative. Like I never understood when people was really talking about being exact. Like if both of your parents are scientists, they are always looking for a problem to then find a solution, right? So I grew up like that. So for me, creativity and science always run together, to tell you the truth. When you think about, any formula, mathematics, even to get to that solution, you need to really understand the problem, which is pretty much what we do in creativity. So I think there's a lot of synergy between science and creativity. I was working in consumer for so many years, but I always had a desire to really bring science because I felt like it was the opportunity to actually create ideas that could really change the world, that could really move the industry, that would make just the world healthier.
Beautiful. Eric?
When I was in college, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to be in the creative space. And I met two guys at Syracuse University, Stu Hyatt and Larry Vine, and they were both copywriters. And I really took a liking to them as people and was inspired by the way they looked at the world. And that's how I ended up being a copywriter. Could have been any number of things in the creative field, and I give them credit for the fact that I'm doing this today. My career has taken a journey just like Renata's, which is I was in the consumer space for a long time, up until just about 2 years ago, selling everything from, hamburgers to Jeeps to Tylenol. And COVID was a transformational moment for me, like a lot of people. And I felt like I wanted to do work that was purposeful. I wanted to capture what I thought was a moment coming out of COVID. If COVID is actually over, I suppose we'll see how that plays out. For health and wellness work to grow up and lead the industry in creativity and innovation.
So in a way, the pandemic actually didn't lift a curtain from your eyes, but it did make you kind of, and I'm going to use a pandemic word, pivot a little bit. Within the last 2 years, is there a campaign that you've worked on that you're proud of?
I think one of the pieces that for me, and it's linked to the pandemic that I'm super proud that the team's been working on, is this Healing the Healers. It's a campaign about recognizing the challenges that healthcare professionals have and mental health. We're talking about mental health of every single person on the planet. We forget the toll that COVID and medicine in general has, and why we need more nurses, we need more doctors around the world. And so the Healing the Healer work, I'm super proud of the team for bringing light to forgotten people in that discussion.
And Renata, do you have a campaign that you're proud of?
It's hard when you ask that for a creative person, right? Because we
love all of our children.
We love all my children, all my babies. I don't have kids, but I'm like, oh, my children, how can I pick one? It is really hard. I have to say that I was just going to say in the last year, there are so many that I like. I just did one that is for diagnostic cookies, which is really for you to, to help people identify skin cancer. So I have been very busy, let's put it this way.
You were talking earlier about your upbringing and your parents as scientists, and I do wonder, how brands in the health space, which has its roots in science, how can they ensure that they're communicating effectively, but also being really playful, emotive, and bring that creativity through?
Look, I think we're in what I think will be the golden age of health and wellness creativity. We're still in a phase where there's a lot of exploration, and we see the best work right now in health and wellness often sits in these nonprofits and not for brands. But I see this massive shift starting to come underway where work that has been a sea of sameness, that has been formulaic, is waking up and starting to lead in marketing innovation the same way the products have led in scientific innovation. And I see a huge switch in brands serving the underserved and health equity, a much bigger role. I see content playing a much bigger role than it has in the past. When I think about this shift, it's that health and wellness work has taken itself sometimes too seriously. And we see in the best work these days the same joy that we love in everyday communications and everyday entertainment coming into the health work.
I totally agree, right? I would say like 5-6 years ago when I was in consumer, it was very separated, right? You have, you work in consumer or you work in health. And now the industry, you have a lot of people like Eric and myself who was like working for years in consumers. And now it was this shift that happened like physically because people, right, they changed from the consumer world and then they start actually working in health and wellness and pharma. But I believe the mentality really changed, right, in terms of what is the power of creating something that it has the purpose and really understanding that you can have ideas that is absolutely, is going to affect people. Like you can sell, I don't know, a T-shirt, a shoe, or you can actually sell a product that actually is going to extend people's life. You talked a little bit, about quarantine and all that. When you talk about the pandemic, I think that one of the things that happened is people really stopped and they asked themselves, right, what is important in life? And they understood the importance of health. And that happens to every single human being, but it also happens to a lot of brands. And you can be a consumer brand, you can be selling a car. You don't want your car to pollute the environment, right? So I think people understood finally that every single product will touch health and wellness.
Yes.
Like
I think you're absolutely right. And today, every brand is a health brand, and the lens which we all look at the world is through a lens of health and wellness. It doesn't matter where we eat or where we're flying or what we're consuming. There is a lens. And you make a good point. Even in the world of automotive, climate change is the biggest health crisis facing the planet. So even that is a lens which health and wellness is a part of.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that people now are just so, less biased. It's not about like, hey, this is going to be limiting. Like actually now this is about really understanding science and understanding that this is extremely important.
We are in this very strange age of mis and disinformation. It happened during COVID. It was there before, but it really ramped up. And I think we are just living in these very quickly evolving times. So I do wonder, when it comes to creating work in the health and the pharma space, how do you communicate a message that's creative, but you're building trust with your audience? Is that something that is challenging at the moment? How do you deal with disinformation?
Yeah, look, we're living in an era now of health information, health misinformation, which is probably true of information in general. For me, there's a really important opportunity and responsible for brands to have a part of that. We trust brands more than governments. We trust brands more than we trust our news sources because of polarization. And so brands are in a really unique position to be trusted sources for information. Now, We also live in a time where, and this is interesting for us as advertising people, where 55% of the media that we consume is not ad supported. And so we're going into an era where we're going to be creating content that doesn't look like the advertising that we created before. And, you know, one of the things that we're looking at, we launched an initiative called Welltainment, which is meant to bring together health, education, and entertainment to close the health equity gap. The reality of what we're seeing is we have to make a leap in where creativity is, and we have to make a leap in meeting people where they are. And that can be done through music and documentaries and gaming and sports. And so all of those wrap into an era where I think we're going to see brands driving a conversation about health that doesn't look like the health conversation that existed before.
One thing that I noticed, just to build what you're saying, Eric, is that coming from consumer, right? We came from this world that the clients, because they were in the digital information, so they were used to understand that you have to engage. And sometimes you're going to hear things that you like and you don't, right? When you come, for me, when it came to pharma, was the first thing that you learn is the word regulated, you know, and it's like, what is that? You know, medical, legal, and regulatory, which is very important. But I think also one big shift that I see about that in the pharma is that, you know, I think the whole industry is understanding that if you're going to engage, you have to have a conversation. If you're going to have a conversation, definitely it's not a monologue. And therefore, you are going to say and hear things that is truth, but is not necessarily, you're not going to have someone editing that, right? So I think it still can grow a lot in pharma and health and wellness, but I can say that that fear still exists.
Yeah. We live in a regulated industry, and I think one of the things that's been really interesting for me, and I don't know what it's been like for you, which is that's used as an excuse.
Yes.
That the difference between good and great is that we're regulated. But we come from a world where I've worked in banking and insurance and spirits and beer. Those are all regulated, and yet they weren't used as excuses for creativity.
We're going to move into the jury. It's why we're here. We're at the London International Awards. Eric, you're on the health and wellness jury. Yeah. So it's a very simplistic question to start, but tell me, how is health versus wellness, how is that defined within the category?
I'll just sort of say my lens for work. I won't speak for the jury as a whole. The health and wellness category that I'm in is in any of the non-regulated. So OTC, any general health and wellness, not pharma, not devices. So I look at the lens through, I want to see real work for real products with real scale. That excites me. When there are literally no excuses to anything in a general health and wellness category, I'm expecting to see real brands, real work with real scale.
Okay. And I wonder, I know you're still fairly, I know for both of you, but I know you're still fairly early in the process. But for you personally, what's maybe exciting you? What might you want to take home to your team?
Whenever you judge, you always see some pieces and you're like, God damn it, why didn't we think of that? And there have been a few of those this year that have risen to the top again. I think they just show where the world is going and what the possibilities are for great work. And some of them are things that I have seen before, but you see them again in a new light here. And you just think, my goodness, what a brilliant approach to things. One is the New Zealand life insurance work that sort of built the story of the afterlife of people who were killed in the show to tell the story afterward. And I also think in the world of health and wellness in OTC, I think the Clarendon diversity work is terrific, starts a conversation over where allergies begin and how brands can make a difference in environments and communities. So those are two that rose to the top, both real brands and campaigns that have real scale. There was innovation in nearly every single category. I mean, everything from really smart devices like Samsung creating an app for their headphones that help filter out the sounds of triggers for kids with autism, to some brilliant social media campaigns, down to just a beautiful film.
Fantastic. Renata, you're on the health and wellness craft and pharma juries. So we've just been talking to Eric about the health and wellness jury, and I think it would be good to get an understanding of what is the difference, particularly in regards to that word, craft.
I love talking about craft, to be honest with you, because, I'm an art director by nature. It's so interesting, craft.
And you come from the land of craft.
And I come from the land of craft. It's so interesting because we see actually craft from, the pharma, the work that everybody's submitting in the pharma, and also the work in craft that was submitting health and wellness. And you know very well that you cannot regulate craft. You really pay attention because a great idea will not be enough to cut through the clutter, right? You need to have that great idea, but then you really need to pay attention to all the details, how much thought you put in it, how you execute it. It's the kind of work that you're never going to stop, right? You're going to put all your knowledge. You're going to, work as hard as you can, and you're going to do everything you can to make sure that that work is executed in the most incredible, beautiful, in persuasive way. So it is that pursuit for greatness. And then you have what is fascinating is that everything can be craft. Because when you think about, right, the copy of craft, you think about the art direction and the colors and then the photography, and you can make that better. You think about the direction, that can be better, right? You think about the editing, that can be better. So this is innovation, how simple to use for the user, how beautiful the product is. So as you can see, as you can hear, I absolutely love it.
Well, for those of you playing the home game, Renata coming into the health and wellness space was the birth of craft. When you came into the space, the work that you created and your teams were creating marked this shift, I think, in health and wellness, where people started to take craft really seriously, and you saw the work suddenly elevate.
I think, honestly, this industry has so many incredible, people that came from consumer, and then they start really being part of it. You have agencies, that really work hard to make sure that the crafting is really important. And for me, I grew up, my first magazine was Archive. So as you can imagine,
sure. Yeah.
Actually in my home, because of the pandemic, I have the entire
paper
archive.
Magazines. Remember those?
I did Archive magazines behind, and you had a lot of amazing agencies that they put all their heart to really make sure people, I think it was a mix between, the people coming in and also the people in the agencies that had that vision. So I really feel that it was an incredible pivotal moment in the industry because it was a lot of people that came together in order to make this happen. And even the clients who started proving the work, right? So I am so excited, for the work of pharma and health and wellness, because we can see that it is moving forward. Still a long way to go, but people now say they are proud. It is work that you say, yes, I work on it, and look at the opportunity, to really touch people in a way that you never even thought about it.
One of the things to build off of what you're saying is, I think we feel this awakening for what's possible in health and wellness communications. I see this awakening, as you said, with clients who are realizing the amplifying effect of creativity. I see it in creatives that have been doing healthcare professional work for decades. I see an awakening in them to be able to do work that they never thought was possible before because there were both mental and the reality of what clients were willing to buy. It feels like a very special time to be doing what we're doing because we're watching creativity wake up in a whole industry. It's the last major industry that has had a user-centric transformation. We've watched it in every single industry in your career and mine, and now we're seeing it happen in health.
It's so interesting for you to say that because, one of the shifts that I noticed too, and I think because all the innovation that is happening now, right? Before we'll be like, okay, give me a really important insight. Now that I see creatives are saying, I want the medical person in the room because that medical person, like if you think about, any work that brings innovation, the most beautiful sound, right? You have so much work that you say, I know a lot of work that very important insights came from the medical person, right? So I think also there is a shift in terms of all the creatives understand that if you're going to really create something amazing, it's not about just having people in the room that actually consider the most creative. You need to have people that has a lot of knowledge that is going to make sure that even in the science way, that is accurate. So I think everybody is realizing that the work to be amazing, you do need to have the right and the left brain. And that's when I feel like the consumer and the farmer world are merging more together because you really cannot live without each other, And if you come and say, oh, yeah, but I am really, creative, and that is not enough. Or if you come and you say, well, but I'm the most important scientific person, I have a PhD. If you don't know how to tell a story, and if you don't know how to really do it in a way that is incredibly emotional and is going to touch people's life, you also is not going to be as effective. So the shift that I truly see that is happening in the industry as well is the fact that people are being more collaborative and they are understanding each other. Diversity is increasing, right? You understand the value of someone who is incredible scientific and they have a PhD, and also someone who has a brilliant mind. And that combination of coming together and really looking at each other and valuing each other and creating something power together and really giving credit to each other and knowing that could not have happened without the both sides of your brain. I think for me, that's really what, makes me wake up every day and really create work, that is going to make a difference.
Yeah. Yeah. Collaboration is key, truly. This makes me think of television shows like Grey's Anatomy, where I know they have medical people on staff just to say that's not how we would use that instrument, which is pretty basic. Renata, I do want to ask if there's a piece of work that for you so far perhaps reflects some of what you're talking about. You can see the collaboration. You can tell that it's not just the creative in the room.
Yes. A lot of the work that you have like craft plus innovation, right? So for example, the most beautiful sound. Incredible work, and obviously there is a lot of science behind because, first of all, if you need to be able to hear a cell cancer dies, you have a lot of science behind that. You need to have technology. But then it's so emotional because imagine if a patient and you hear that, they played today in the room and, everyone was like looking at each other and say, wow, how powerful. So I think that technology is not enough. Storytelling is fundamentally important, but I think when we start mixing, right, and bringing the two of them together, I really think it has a very high impact. And in the last year or so, where you have like AI coming in, first is like the fear, right? Oh, what is going to happen? Now people understand and they're using AI, to actually create new treatments, right? New therapies, new products. So is suddenly that conversion of something that you're afraid of to something that actually you're going to embrace it. And that is starting to reflect on the work. And I'm really excited that this is happening,
AI is going to forever transform the way that we do our business. I'm a big nerd, so it's super exciting to me. At the same time, there's still a beauty of a simple idea. There's a wonderful idea from Mexico for Red Cross ambulances where they changed the sound of the siren to be dona, which is donate in Spanish. So it's good, dona, dona. And I'm like, that's just such a simple idea for generating donations for the Red Cross. And I love simple things like that. And I love simple things that take on a life of their own, like changing the name of Charles de Gaulle Airport to Anne de Gaulle to create awareness for kids with Down syndrome. no AI in either of those, and yet just this beautiful, simple expression of creativity.
Yeah, I think that's always going to be part of the work, right? I think that simplicity, I agree that is always going to be fundamentally important, right? So, but that's what happens. There is no formula, right? There is no formula. You can have like something incredible, simple, like Eric's saying, low budget, you can actually produce on your own. And that's going to be incredibly awarded. And then you have other one that is actually, is a lot of technology, behind it. And it's also both incredible for different reasons. So the kind of complexity, right, that great work is going to be great work, and there is no formulation to that. It's just really this amazing and powerful idea. So that is the part that actually I love about creativity.
Yeah.
Eric, Renata, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast, and good luck with the deliberations.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Eric Weisberg is the Global Chief Creative Officer of Havas Health and You, and Renata Maia is the Global Chief Creative Officer at Wunderman Thompson Health. They're both judges in the 2023 London International Awards. I'm Sarah Knights from Eardrum in Australia. The theme music is by Brian Yessian of Yessian Music. The manager is Larissa Levy from the London International Awards. This podcast is an Eardrum production.